So the new requirements are for coalition members to sample their on-farm drinking water wells for nitrates. So the purpose of the monitoring is to first identify those wells that have nitrate concentrations exceeding the drinking water standard, and secondly, to notify those users of the potential health risks. So in middle December, we sent out an outreach package to members, included a quick guide for members, member information form, a notification template, an informational trifold. We updated our website to include sampling requirements, available forms, frequently asked questions, and available labs. So what are the sampling requirements? So members are required to sample their on-farm drinking water wells annually. The sample results should be reported as nitrate plus nitrite as nitrogen. You're required to use an ELAP laboratory certified for testing nitrates, and up to 5 years of past data may be used. So in terms of the sample results, so if you're less than 8 milligrams per liter of nitrate plus nitrate as nitrogen, for 3 consecutive years, your monitoring frequency will change to once every 5 years. If you're between 8 and 10 milligrams per liter, you'll continue to sample annually. And if you're over 10 milligrams per liter, there is a notification requirement, but no further sampling. So the permit requires you to sample annually, and so the monitoring frequency does reduce if you are under 8. So the drinking water standard is 10 milligrams per liter. So members do not have to sample if the drinking water is not used for human consumption. So what we require is that you have some sort of documentation that you're not using the well for drinking, if it comes to a point that we're asking you if you are using your well. So here's the drinking water well member information form. So this is what you're going to fill out and take to the lab with your sample and chain of custody. In here, the laboratory will create an account for you that will enter your results into GeoTracker, which is the state's groundwater database. It'll create a global ID for you. So each well will have a global ID number. So next year sampling should be a bit easier. You'll just have to use that global ID number when you take your sample into the lab. So the results do need to be entered into GeoTracker by the laboratory. So this is the notification template. This was designed to notify users of the potential health risks of drinking the water. So the member's responsibility is if your results exceed 10 milligrams per liter, you have 10 days to notify the user of this water using this form. You sign it and also send a copy into the Central Valley Water Board. If your family is the only one drinking the water, you just need to sign it and send this notification into the Central Valley Water Board. What if you're over 10 milligrams per liter and our tenants refuse to sign and acknowledge the report? It's the member's responsibility to sign it. The member's responsibility is just to notify the user of the potential health risks. The member is signing the notification and sending it to the Central Valley Regional Water Board. So what we're going to do, we're going to look at the data that comes into GeoTracker, and anyone who's over the drinking water standard is what we'll do is ensure that we received a notification.
So, Bob, why don't you address this gentleman's question about the health effects of nitrates, or what is that?
So, in terms of the most vulnerable populations for nitrates, and this notification template has, pregnant women and infants. So, in terms of grown adults, and there are studies out there, but nothing has tied it into there's some studies that may be related to cancer, but there's nothing really out there that really ties nitrates into acute health problems, I guess. Does that answer your question, sir?
In these areas that have problems, there was no mention of reverse osmosis. Is that not cost effective? Is it better to bring bottled water in?
Well, this program is focused on the monitoring requirement. So how you treat the water is completely up to you. So yes, reverse osmosis systems do work.
Well, I'm thinking of these communities.
Yes, so for a treatment system, RO is one of the few things you can use to get nitrates out. But as far as cleaning up the aquifer, that's what I was referring to before. We have these massive aquifers with nitrates. It's not efficient to pump it up and just treat it and put it back in the groundwater or tank it. But as far as an in-home system, Culligan has systems that the one thing you got to remember about RO is your salts content in your water will dictate how much waste stream that you have and how frequently you have to change those filters. So if you've got clean water, no salts, and nitrate, they'll go without service for months and months. But if you have a high TDS in your water, that really loads up the filters in a reverse osmosis. So you need to be aware of that ROs they work, but you really got to track them. You got to make sure that they're serviced regularly and taken care of.
Your statement that you have to keep the water receipts. A lot of the people in here, myself included, live on the property and drink that water. But I've got reverse osmosis. I also have a resin system to remove the nitrates. I test that once a year along with everything else, and if it's okay, fine. I change the filters once a year, and it's fine. You didn't mention any of that.
Oh, that's fine, sir. Those were just examples. So yes, exactly what you said. If you can just prove that you're not drinking the water or the water is treated, yeah, that's fine.
But you don't want that data.
No, this program isn't requesting that data, no. So here's a list of available labs. We also have printed out copies as you came in today. So there's a frequently asked questions as well.
Yeah, so we got the question. I don't know how to answer it. I'll just recite it. So how do you know when a sample's brought into the lab that it's your well? Well, you can have the lab come and take the sample, and you know that it's coming out of your well. But other than that, it's on the honor system. Oh, and there's a chain of custody letter that you have, or form that needs to be filled out by whoever takes that sample. Is that?
That's correct. And then I think it says, if you're above 10, why is there no further sampling? So you've identified that the well is above the drinking water standard, so therefore there's a notification requirement. The program doesn't go further than that. Yes, so is GeoTracker anonymous? In terms of GeoTracker, the public data will be listed as an APN and the nitrate concentration. All your member information is for regional board use, not for public.
Yes, hello. My question is, every well on the farm has to be tested if it's a drinking water well?
If it's used for drinking water, yes.
And if we're next to the city, that doesn't count? You have to do each well.
If it's, can you
We
repeat
live
that?
right next to Oakdale. Can we use Oakdale numbers?
Yeah, you don't. If it's city water, then you don't have to test it. It's this individual domestic well on your farm on the APN that is in the coalition. So if you're getting city water, then no, you don't have to test it, right?
No.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Okay, any other questions while we're getting ready to wrap up here?
Yeah, so the question is basically, where do you grab the sample? So you should be grabbing it before the filtration system, so as close to the pressure tank as possible.
And if possible, before the pressure tank. Go ahead over here.
Yes, if you have a leasehold interest on a ranch and there's the landlords, if you will, have a homestead that's there and you have no right the use of that piece of property and there's a domestic well on it, is that still your responsibility or is that it's not part of your leasehold? How does that work?
If the member is leasing the parcel, the member's responsibility is to notify the owner of the requirements.
But I'm not leasing that part where that domestic well is, but it's in the same APN number, if you will.
And so if the domestic well is located on the enrolled APN, then it's required to be sampled. So your requirement would be to notify that owner of the requirements.
But it'll be his responsibility to test it, not mine.
That is correct.
Thank you.
Now, if that house has a different APN than the farm property, it's not required to be sampled. No, I understand you had the same, but again, if you do have a parcel split with a house, then it's not part of the irrigated lands program.
So another question, if you're over 10 milligrams per liter, does the farmer have to provide water to the tenant until the levels are controlled? And at this point, we recommend that replacement water is given, but it's not a requirement of the permit. The requirement is to monitor the well and notify those users of the potential health risks.
And that's the same as Salinas Valley or Central Coast where they have that requirement. It's not required to provide bottled water, but I tell you, the growers are doing that. So you got a question here, sir?
Yes, I do. Right here, over here to your left. So I just had a quick question too about when your county changes the standards of requirements. How as far as the coalition adjust, basically be able to, address that issue, changing the standards so many years on your water and stuff like that. Like in 2006, it got changed in Merced County as far as the water requirements.
Well,
And-
I'm not really familiar with the county requirements. And are you talking about?
Yeah.
Oh, the 45 is just a
Right.
different way to look at the number. And
Yeah, it's the way you report it. 45 is nitrate as nitrate. 10 milligrams per liter is nitrate plus nitrite as nitrogen. So you're reporting as nitrogen, not as nitrate.
Right.
those are two equivalent numbers, though.
Right. Thank
So
you.
there's a way to convert that number.
All right, everybody, well, thank you. We got one more question. Oh, yeah, the young man over here. Go ahead. Backflow preventers on a domestic well are not required by the Irrigated Lands Program or the Water Board, but the county may have something to say about that. I'm not sure what the county ordinance is on that. I don't know. Sorry. Yes. Go ahead, young man.
So say you have an almond orchard, and over a course of years, you find the average production of those almonds. What would be the formula that you plug that into to find how much nitrogen you need for that year? Then.
How much you would need? That would be something out of the documents that we prepared. But the 68 pounds per 1,000 pounds of nut meats is the highest efficiency. But
Okay.
again, we talked about nitrogen use efficiency. If you got 100% efficiency, that should give you a good crop. But not many crops can say I'm 100% efficiency.
So if you find it like an average, would that be a good place to aim around?
Yes, I think that's good. And talk to a CCA. I mean, a certified crop advisor can help you a lot on those kind of questions.
Okay, thank you.
Basically, they said if providing bottled water, so if you're providing bottled drinking water, but have a domestic well that's used for showering and other purposes in households, but drinking water is using a bottled water system, do you have to report your requirement?
No sampling is required if you're not using that water for human consumption. Again, you can take showers, use the water, but not for human consumption, drinking or cooking.
Brittany in the back.
Are they mandatory to have our wells sampled, and will we be fined?
It is part of the new permit requirements.
Yeah, that isn't what I asked. I said, are we going to be fined? And it is requirement by the state?
Again, this is the program just started. As a regional board, we do have those tools, but in a sense, this is more, again, what I said, to identify those wells with nitrate concentrations exceeding the drinking water standard and making sure that people that are using that water are notified of the potential health risks.
I have the number.
Is this requirement, if you're the only one, you and your family, you farm, no workers, no renters, are you exempt?
Well, not exempt from sampling, but in terms of the notification requirement.
For the notification, you don't have to notify.
So yeah, and I guess I can go to the next slide here. So here's the notification template. That might explain a little bit. Okay, go ahead.
Why is our coalition number on that form? That really wipes out anonymity for the farmer.
In terms of the form, there's only the nitrate concentration and the APN will be available for public. That other information is used by the regional board, so we can keep track of who's actually sampling and who's actually, turned in the information.
Go ahead.
So I think the question was I'm already using bottled water. Is there anything I need to do? And we would prefer that you submit the notification template to us with information on I'm not drinking the water. But currently there's no requirement. As this program develops, I'm sure we'll have the ability or method for members to check in with us if they're using bottled water.
I have 2 questions here. What does enforcement look like?
I think the regulatory framework for enforcement here is going to come through, well, at least for replacement water, will come through our CV Salts program. And again, at this time, that's really in the back of our minds. It's really getting the information out there. And again, going back to, trying to identify those wells that are exceeding the drinking water standard, and again, the user, notifying the user of those health risks. So currently, yes, we do have that enforcement capability, just like the Office of Enforcement. But at this point in time, our goal is outreach to members and making sure that those that don't know what they're drinking know what they're drinking.
So to clarify that, I'm not sure what you meant by the CV Salts would be handling that.
In terms of replacement water, so there's always a question there if, well, I have a well with nitrate concentrations exceeding the drinking water standard. What do I do? Can I do treatment? Can I do bottled water? And at this point, again, our goal is for members to sample their wells and notify the users of the nitrate concentration.
How much water would a person have to drink over that limit before they either get sick or keel over dead?
Well, I guess this leads into this form. So, pregnant women and infants are the most vulnerable to nitrates. A typical healthy adult, again, there's studies out there that could be potential health risks, but yeah, I have people telling me they've been drinking the water for 30 years and there's been no issues.
I have a question. My daughter's got water softener on it, so do I take my sample from her kitchen or at the well?
The sample should be taken closest to the well as possible before any treatment.
Excuse me, you just stated, sample well, then notify. And I asked the question a minute ago. If I'm the only one, me and my family are the only one on the well, and you said, well, you can sample it and not notify. What? That doesn't make any sense. I'm sorry.
And
That doesn't make sense.
what's that?
I'm the only one on the well. Why would who am I going to notify? Why would I sample if I don't have to notify? If I have a renter or a farm worker, absolutely, I understand that. But I'm on my well. No one else drinks my water. Why do I have to do anything?
You don't.
I just asked the question, and you stated sample, but don't have to notify.
Yeah, you don't have to notify anyone else because it is your family.
Do I have to sample is the question.
Yes.
Why? Who am I going to notify if there's a problem?
The Central Valley Water Board. It's in our order, yes. Is it mandatory to enter your results into GeoTracker? So part of the program, the laboratories are required to enter results into GeoTracker.
If you have a leased property where the owner is not a member, who's responsible for taking and there's a rental unit on that property, who's responsible for the cost of the water testing?
So if you have no responsibility for the well, your responsibility would be to contact the owner of the requirements, and it is the owner's responsibility to sample the well.
Even if they're not a member?
Correct.
If the parcel on that rental property is split off from your rented parcel, it's exempt. But if it's the same APN for the house as the property, then they have to be in. So some of these houses are split off APNs. Those aren't required, right?
Yep.
Anybody that was a non-member, I mean, a dairy permit has a groundwater quality deal, and the East San Joaquin Water Quality members, they all got letters. I got my letter. Everybody in this room probably got their letter to test their wells. Did anybody that don't belong to the coalitions or has their own groundwater dairy permit or whatever, did they get a letter to test their groundwater wells?
No,
Drinking water wells?
This is a new permit requirement, so all members received the letter. No one outside of the group.
No one outside the group that's not a member. Well, see, that's not equal. That's not fair. That's what we're all dues-paying members, and we're all gonna fill out our paperwork and put our hard work into this, and you should be going after those things. The regional board needs to go after everybody if you're going to penalize us.
Agree, and I think there's other programs coming down the line that will address all well users or the groundwater issues that we're dealing with in the Central Valley.
Doesn't the dairy guys have to sample their wells?
Yes, the dairy group is actually, has the same requirements. They're sampling wells.
There's a question, the last text on the screen, if you want to read that.
So if we have been sampling for 5 years with no detectable nitrogen, will we have to keep sampling after this sample, assuming it's still low? Yeah, you can use up to 5 years of past data as long as it meets the new permit requirements. So the new permits require an ELAP certified lab to do the testing. As well as the data needs to be consecutive. So you could use, let's say you sampled the past 2 years and then sampled this year, your requirement would be done based on your results.
You use your past data for your result, how do you get your tracker number if you're not sending it to the lab?
Well, your data has to follow this permits requirement. So in terms of, you'd have to go to whatever laboratory it was, and hopefully they're an ELAP certified laboratory, and then you could use that data. If you were using a lab outside the program, so it's not certified, then you can't use that data, unfortunately.
Go ahead, sir.
Yeah, follow up to this gentleman's inquiry. I have 2 neighbors that are 3-acre parcels with domestic wells, and supposedly they think they are exempt from all of this because they're only 3 to 5 acres. Is that correct?
No, size doesn't matter. As long as the APN is enrolled in the coalition, they're required to sample their wells.
They're not members.
If they have commercial irrigated cropland, then they're out of compliance then. I mean, any commercial production is supposed to have either an individual permit or be a member of the coalition.
Oh, they're a 3-acre, Sunday farmer. I mean, they got a couple cows and that's it.
Yeah, then they're not considered commercial.
They are exempt.
Right.
We
made as much noise as we could to get everybody in this program, because I'm with Joe. There's a lot of people out there that are not sampling wells that are on 1.5 acre parcels, and the state was mum on that, State Water Board. Go ahead, sir.
All right, so if you're over 10, like mine's 12, I already got it tested. So I'd never have to do it again. So what are we trying to achieve out of this? I mean, it's kind of like I've condemned my well forever.
Really, the purpose is, again, identify those wells and then ensure that users know the potential health risks.
Are they ever going to get better, though? I mean, it's just like, you're taking the data, then we're just dumping it, and it doesn't make a lot of sense to me.
The State Water Board put this in their petition order, and it's up to us to implement this requirement.
All right, thanks everybody. Please grab a lunch, as we said.